Hello, dear students, dear everybody. I'm Pavlo Brin. I'm professor from Ukraine, and today I'd like to speak with you about communication in management. I'm sharing my presentation. Okay. First of all, I'd like to say many thanks for inviting me to this interesting event, to Global Faculty Week, and also I'd like to say that we all, Ukrainian people, we are much obliged your country for supporting us during these awful times. Here is my university. First of all, I'd like to introduce, to present my university. This is the main building of our university. We are in Kharkiv. Actually, here is the map of Ukraine, and Kharkiv is the second year in our country. We have about 300 large industrial enterprises and 24 higher educational institutions in our city. And generally, Kharkiv was really a pearl of Western Europe. Here is some pictures from our university. We have 9 main institutes. Actually, maybe it sounds a little bit strange, but before organization we had more than 20 faculties, and our rector decided that it's too difficult to manage it, and he combined some faculties into one institute. So now we have 9 really big institutes and more than 100 departments. And now we have about 11,000 students. And I decided to also to include it into my today's presentation, that you might know that nowadays we have war in our country because of Russian invasion. And can you believe that it was a city, all these pictures are from Kharkiv. And actually, it is really difficult to feel that we have to leave our city because there are ruins. And maybe if somebody visited Kharkiv, he or she knows this place. This place is the biggest in Europe, actually, square, the square of Independence. And what is really awful, that Russian army decided to destroy living districts. Before leaving, I lived in Kharkiv, and we have some, we call it some sleeping districts. There are no factories, office building, just big houses with flats and nothing else. And Russians decide to destroy it. Okay, however, a lot of citizens of Kharkiv decided to move from Kharkiv, and also me. And nevertheless, I'd like to deliver a lecture for you today. So thank you one more time for inviting. Today I decided to speak about communication, but I'd like to speak to discuss it from a historical perspective of management. Generally, what is management? Management is planning, organizing, motivating, and controlling. First of all, a manager, has to create a strategy. The company manager has to set some objectives for the company. Then the manager should create the organizational structure and to say, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. This is setting task procedures. Then a manager should motivate everybody because, without a reward, nobody will work for the company. And at the end, the manager should check the results. And during today's lecture, we will discuss how communication as a linking process is involved to all these functions of management. And at the right picture, you can see the cycle of management. It means that the process of management never ends because manager should adopt his or her company according to changes of external environment. You can imagine that nobody expected such awful times. So our university, we had another strategy, and now we had to adopt it to our current situation. If speaking about communication, why I decided to discuss it with you today, because if speaking about managers, managers spend between half of time and 90% of their time communicating. Can you believe it? That's why communication is essential for organizational success. First of all, I'd like to begin with a history of management and communication. Even if speaking about ancient organization, and one of the ancient organization is the Roman Empire, they understood, they realized how it is how it is important, it was important, and it is important to have good communication system, but then it was the only possible way to communicate. It was to send somebody with some letter, and that's all. They decided to build roads. At the last picture, you can see the old Appia Road in Rome. I visited this place. And believe me, this road was built about 2000 years ago, but nevertheless, this road has quality better than some roads, maybe in some villages in my country. And in the left picture, you can see all the roads of Roman Empire, and you can see it's like a blood system of body. Why it was so important? Because first of all, it was very easy way of communication. It helped to get taxes from all provinces, and what was more important, if somebody decided to fight against Roman rule, it was very easy to send army to this region. But nowadays, management completely different from the ancient organizations. And let's discuss maybe very briefly the differences between ancient and contemporary organizations. Uh, in ancient times, it were only few large organizations and no big businesses. And nowadays, we have a lot of extremely large organizations. A couple of years ago, I read an article. There is Nike. You must know this firm producing sports equipment. So money from US, design from Europe, and they have shops, production shops, I mean, in Asia, in Vietnam, in China. So there is Nike all over the world. And nowadays we have to connect all parts, of communicate, all of parts of organization with the help of communicating. In ancient organization, it was really few managers and almost no middle managers. And nowadays, in any organization, there are a lot of management, a lot of managers, and thereafter they have to be interrelated somehow. That's why we have to use communicational system. In old times, managerial work were not clearly separated from non-managerial activities. And nowadays, we understand that there are some people who have to do something by their hands, but in any organization must be a lot of people to manage it, I mean, to manage the organization. And how it was possible to be a manager in old time, in ancient times, it was actually only two possible ways to become a manager: to be born in the family of the previous manager, or to kill the previous manager, if speaking about some emperor or about Tsar. And nowadays, a succession of managers is based only on his or her competence. As far as in ancient organization, there were only a few managers, only few people were able to make important organizational decisions. And nowadays, a lot of people are able to make important organizational decisions. And you can check that nowadays in Japanese shops where cars are being produced, every working place near the assembly lines has some red button, and it is allowed for any worker to stop the assembly line if something goes wrong. So even non-managerial staff nowadays is able to make organizational decisions. Thereafter, everybody must be also interrelated with the help of communicating process. And nowadays we have rational decision making as the basis of managerial activity. And if coming back to history of management, before the previous century, nobody separated managerial activities from non-managerial activities, and this man, who you can see now at this screen, his name is Frederick Winslow Taylor. In 1911, he published a book, the first book related with management, the Principles of Scientific Management. And thereafter, everybody calls him as father of management. But in this book, he didn't pay attention to communicational process, and mostly he analyzed some operations, and he tried to discover the best way to perform every operation. But nevertheless, it was the first step of modern management. The second important step in management was publishing by these men, by Henri Fayol, several articles, and then he managed in 1949, he published a book, General and Industrial Management, and he defined management as we know it now. He defined functions of management. Actually, the list is not like this, but okay, let it be. He named some functions not like we do it now, but nevertheless he defined functions of management and he defined principles of management. But also he didn't pay much attention to communicational process because he decided that everything must be done in natural way. And the first man, the first scientist who decided to pay attention to communicational process related to management was Elton Mayo. And actually, he was the first scientist who decided to solve some problems of management from a psychology perspective, because if speaking about Frederick Winslow Taylor, if speaking about Henri Fayol, they were managers of real companies, and generally they didn't have education as psychologists. And Elton Mayo, it was a really interesting situation. He was invited to analyze and to solve very unpleasant situation at some US textile company. In some department, labor turnover reached 250%, and it was really awful. You know, if we have to find new and new labors for our company, we have to educate them, and we are spending a lot of time and we are spending a lot of money to this process. Generally, it is completely normal. Then labor turnover is about 5-6%, it's normal, because if speaking about ladies sometimes become pregnant. Maybe somebody decides to move to another region. Maybe some worker dies, and it's normal. Then labor turnover it is equal to 4 or 5%, because it's no situation that the staff is completely stable. But 250%, it was a real tragedy. And what was more important and more surprising, that financial incentives didn't work. So they tried to pay more money for these ladies in this textile shop, but nobody wanted to work at this department, at this productional shop of the company. And Elton Mayor analyzed what was the problem, and the problem was that it was very noisy, and it was only few opportunities to communicate to another person. And you know, it's like to live all your life in silence without any possibility of communicating. And he decided to solve this situation, and he introduced not he, but a manager of the company, following to his advices, he introduced 2 10-minute rest period for spinners, and miracle results were really great. So people decided to stay at this department at their working place. And it is the first the first time when somebody decided to pay attention, I would say, direct attention to communications and managerial processes. And what is the another evidence of this situation, that later, when supervisor, it was the company was sold, and then it was another manager, and then this manager decided to delete these breaks. The situation reversed to the earlier state. So we can say that the ideas, the hypothesis of the Elton Mayor was completely proved. So Elton Mayor, we can say that Elton Mayor really proved that it is possible to provide communication, to use communication as a reward. And a little bit later, after him, you must know also this man, is Abraham Maslow. He created this pyramid from needs, and he separated 5 levels of need: physiological, safety, social, esteem, and self-actualization. And as you can see from the picture, social needs are situated at the 3rd level of his hierarchy. It means that we all people, we are like social animals. We want to communicate with other people. Yes, there are a lot of possible way of communications. It does mean that everybody need to speak with some other people. There are a lot of other possible ways of communicating, to publish an article, to publish a book, to be to prepare. Nowadays, there are more possibilities to publish a blog, for example, something like that. But anyway, everybody has this need, and as far as everybody has this very need, this need must be satisfied. I'd like to give you maybe 1 minute to think, is it possible to use communicating as a reward? Nowadays, I mean, according to the ideas of Abraham Maslow. Please maybe put this video to pause and think a little bit, but we are continuing. Before thinking about is it possible to use communicating as a reward, we have to think, we have to set the definition. What is a reward? A reward is anything an individual perceives as valuable. So for somebody, a reward is the money. For somebody, it could be a new position. For somebody, it could be some social benefits, some social symbols. For example, a parking place near which are situated near to the entrance of the company. And according to modern theories of motivating, we can divide all rewards into two main types: intrinsic and extrinsic. Let's define what is intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic reward is obtained through the work itself, and extrinsic reward is attained from not from the work, but it is something provided by the organization. And it is clear to understand the difference looking at the left picture. So there are two boys, and they are playing football, and everybody everybody is thinking about his reward. The left one in yellow t-shirt, he thinks about some prize, and the right, he's thinking about his intrinsic reward. He is playing football just for fun, and everybody is motivated, but with different types of reward. Sorry. So I do hope that it is clear for you that social interaction could be used as an intrinsic reward if working process allows people to communicate. So workers in this very situation, they will have some positive emotions after the process of communicating. And if speaking about theory of Abraham Maslow, we can help our workers to satisfy social needs with the help of first social interaction. So if we see as a managers some social interaction within a company, we have to support it. Then we have to create team spirit in our organization. The third, we can conduct some meetings. Maybe you didn't think about it, but some people really love to be a part of a meeting, just to speak, just to share ideas. And as for example, for me, I don't like this type, but somebody really loves it. Then the fourth, if we see some informal working groups, we should also support it, but only if we see that it has no damage to our organizational objectives. You know what I mean, damages. It could be the situation that somebody decide to come to his or her working place just to communicate with co-workers without any positive contribution into working process. This is harm. And the fifth, we can provide some outside social activities for our subordinates. So with the help of all these events, we can support the process of communication, of social interaction of our subordinates, and satisfying the social needs. And a couple of words, what is now the modern view at the communicating process? What is communication? Communication from the modern view is transfer the information or some data from one person to another person. If speaking about organizations, we can divide these process into internal communications, communications with the people only inside organization. As the example of the internal communication, I decided to use this board, and actually at our department we had one in Kharkiv. Sometimes it is very useful when we have some place to put some note for everybody. And external communication is communication between organization and people outside organization, for example, with clients. Communication is really necessary between the different part of the organizations, because all the organizational decisions made at all levels of management must be communicated to all subordinates. And to do it, we must have some channels. We need some channels for communicating. In contemporary organization, we have a lot of types of communicating between managers and subordinates, between subordinates, with clients, with local communities. Especially, it is very important when we are creating the corporate social responsibility strategy of our company. So there are a lot of ways of communicating. And formal process of communicating is presented here. First of all, the sender of the message has to code the idea. So he has the idea. Then he should use some channel. He has to code it. Code means, in this meaning, means that it must be written or it must be presented with some symbols, for example. Not only written, for example, it could be some signs. If speaking about communicating on roads, everybody knows what is some signs which you can see on every road of your city. Then the message is transmitted, and after receiving it must be decoded, and after decoding it must be some activity which was expected to be done by the sender of this message. What factors should managers take to consideration when choosing a method of communicating? The first, the method should be not very expensive. Then the method of communicating should be rather speedy. The method must be confidential if we don't want to share the information, and also it should be some record of the method for different reasons. It should be used, for example, for the receiver of the message to understand, maybe to read this information or to watch this information one more time. Maybe somebody lost some piece of information. Then it could be used in the situation then it is some conflict, and for example some manager can say, okay, I said that you have to do it, and the subordinate can say, okay, nobody told me that I should do it. So if there is a record of the communication, so it is rather easy to avoid such conflicts. So when we're choosing the channel of communicating, we have to keep in mind cost, speed, secrecy, and record. And generally, there are three general methods of communication: oral or verbal, just to say somebody that you have to do it; written, to send some letter; and visual, to present something in the form of presentation, in the form of video blog, or in some other form. And every type of communication has its pro and contras. If speaking about oral communication, it is very quick because it's very easy to say somebody, you have to do it, yes, and instant feedback. So you as a manager, you can ask, okay, have you understood your task? And in this situation, you will have immediate answer. But disadvantages of this method are that there is no record, and may be hard to remember for everybody. Some small things of the message. If speaking about written communication, the record is kept. It is very good characteristic, and you don't have to remember everything because it is possible to read it in any time. And if speaking about contrast of this method, I'd like to say that no instant feedback, because we don't know whether our subordinate read our message, especially if it is not a letter, but for example, some instruction. And as far as something is written, it is not confidential because it can be read not only by the receiver, but by anybody. And if speaking about the third level, the third type of communication, visual communication, it is very easy to understand because everything is obvious, but contrasts for this method are the following: that some people may not understand some charts, and it takes a lot of time to prepare the presentation. And when we are sending some information, it could be noise. It could be some distortion of information. And to present this situation, I'd like to show you this video. Actually, I make a pause to this video. Actually, when I'm delivering this course personally, we are playing such a game with students, not only with this task, but with different tasks. Yes, and everybody can see that there are some distortion of information. What is the general idea of the following video? The first man, he is sending the information, and the left standing person has to understand, to repeat these several motions to the next person. And as you can see, it is like driving a bicycle, something like that. And please can see what is after the first two. Here is almost the same. Sorry. It is also the same, almost the same. Very close. Very close. To understand what it was firstly. From there, it is rather difficult to understand that it was a bicycle. It is closer to dancing, I would say. It is more closer to dancing. It's pure dancing. I would say it is another dance. Ladies dancing. The third dance. The fourth dance, like a club. You see that there are a lot of distortion. On the fifth dance, it was a little bit more serious. So, no dancing. Okay. Dancing again. And just to recall what was in the beginning. Just I have to check my presentation again. So to avoid this situation with noise, we need feedback system. And if we have one, if it can prevent this awful situation. And actually, we can use it with the help of controlling function. Actually, people who do not know what is management, what is modern management, they think about controlling as a process of only checking the results and that's all. But all managers know that controlling function has three possible forms: preliminary, concurrent, and post-action. And if speaking about preliminary controlling, we are using it before the working process. Concurrent controlling is used when the process is in action, and post-action control we are using it only when the time for some operation is over. And when using concurrent controlling, it is possible to avoid such situation with a distortion of information. So we have to check every moment what was understood, and what was done at the basis of the information which was sent by us. So I hope you really clearly understood that management needs a feedback system. And if we manage to organize a feedback system, the data results in the process of communicating, the communicating will be organized in the best way. So, as a short conclusion from today's lecture, we spoke about history of management very briefly. We spoke about how communication became a reward, and then how it became the essential part of management. And I do hope that I have persuaded you that communication is really that feedback system is really essential part of communicating process, and using of feedback system helps us to avoid the distortion of information. Thank you for watching this video. You can write me a message. I will send you the presentation, or you are welcome to contact your teacher, and you are welcome to read this presentation. And in this presentation, you can find some facts about me. There are some links to my CV and to my accounts, to my academic accounts. Thank you for watching. See you. Bye bye.